The first key in understanding why the data inside of your ad console is probably wrong comes down to understanding the difference between vCPM campaigns, or cost per thousand, and a cost per click model. So these are two different ways of charging you for your ads. So this is from a presentation that I did going over this, but in today's video, I don't want to just give you a presentation. We're actually going to dive into the ad console. I'm going to show you the exact reports and how to optimize them. But first, let's go over the differences here, because this will help you understand why the data is, I don't want to say incorrect, but maybe misleading inside of your ad console, and why you're probably spending money on campaigns that you shouldn't be. So in a cost per click model, it means you pay every time somebody clicks on your ads. You're not paying for impression. If someone sees your ad and doesn't click, you're not charged for it. And this is a very classic model and the most common model inside of Amazon advertising, but Amazon has introduced a vCPM model. So this is for sponsored display, but they've also introduced this option for sponsored brand ads as well. And so what does this mean? This model means you are charged for impressions. So when someone sees your ad, more specifically, you're charged for every 1,000 viewable impressions. And the definition of viewable impressions is very important. So what is a viewable impression? Because this is what you're charged for. In a viewable impression, an ad view is counted where at least 50% of the ad should have been in the shopper's viewpoint for at least 1 second, which means your ad, only half of it has to show, even in the bottom left corner where nobody's looking, for 1 Mississippi. And that's it. And you're charged for every time that happens 1,000 times. And that's where your bid comes in. So you say, hey, Amazon, I'm willing to pay X for 1,000 viewable impressions. And it's not that this is a bad model. It's just a different way to calculate the spend. But the problem comes in when you look at a view attribution sales model versus a click. So now what is the difference between that? Well, in a cost per click model, when someone clicks into your ad and then goes to purchase it, that purchase is counted as a sale to that ad. It's a last touch attribution model, meaning if that is the last thing ad that someone clicked on, then you're going to have a sale recorded. Well, in a view attribution model, what happens is as long as somebody not even saw your ad, they had it in their field of view, at least 50% of your ad for 1 second, and then they go on to purchase your product, well, that is counted as a sale. But as you can imagine, that may or may not have really driven that shopper to purchase. This is where the waters get a little bit muddy. I'm going to hop into an ad console right now and show you exactly what I mean. In this particular account, this is actually looking at date ranges before we started managing this account. So we've gone through and we've made adjustments. So if I looked at most recent data, that's going to be fixed. But right now, inside of this ad account for our campaigns, we're seeing a cost of 13%, 11%, 13%, 14%, 8%. This one's at 35%, but this has a cost per click attribution model. You can see where it says views and clicks. So these are all vCPM campaigns. So if we were going through and we were optimizing these, you can say, oh my gosh, I have almost 4K of sales over a 30-day period for a 13% ACoS. Why would I not spend more on these ads? And this is what often happens to sellers. I actually consulted with a brand who had spent $20,000 on vCPM sponsored display campaigns because they didn't know how to correctly analyze and optimize these ads. And when they looked at the correct attribution data, what they found is that the ACoS, instead of being 10%, was 400,000%, which is a wild difference. So let me show you. First, let's go over how to download the report. Then we'll go through the report. You'll actually see in live time the difference between a click attribution and a view attribution when it comes to ACoS. And then I'll show you how to use that information in that report to actually optimize these types of ads, because you do not want to be optimizing these using ad console, because you're going to be making incorrect optimizations. Okay, first off, let's go through where to download these reports. So if you go into the account, if you go to sponsored ads, if you click on bulk operations, you will be taken to this tab. So we need to use a bulk file. A bulk file is the only way in which you are going to see the click attribution sales data on a target level. There's other reports you can pull, but that'll give you on a campaign level, and that's not going to give you enough information to make optimizations. And the benefits of a bulk file is not only can we see the data, we can also take action in our account using bulk files as well, because they can be used to make changes to the account. Okay, let's go through it here. So I'm going to select a date range. You want to analyze a good amount of data, so last 14 or last 30 days. You can uncheck all of these. I would check campaign items with 0 impressions, and then you can uncheck all of these. We don't need these data points. You can leave them checked if you want, but you can see we just need sponsored display data because these are sponsored display campaigns. So if you click create spreadsheet for download, you'll see that the file is requested and it's being requested right here. Once this is available for download, you'll download this option right here, and then you can open it up inside of a spreadsheet, which I'm going to show you now. So this is a bulk file, and you can see here that I'm on the sponsored display campaigns. Okay, so when you open up your file, it's going to look like this, or you might be landed on a portfolio tab. You'll want to go to the sponsored display campaigns, and then you're going to want to create a filter at the top of the page. And I also like to freeze the first row just to make it a little bit easier. Now from this filter, you want to filter the entity column to look at the individual targets. I'm not going to get into how to use bulk files or what's going to go on. I'm just going to show you how to do this specific task. If you want more content on bulk files, we have a lot of content on this channel, or feel free to ask questions in the comment section. But I'm going to uncheck everything, and I'm going to filter the entity for only audience targeting and contextual targeting. This is going to be all of my targets in the account. And then if I scroll all the way over here, I'll start to see, now these are my targeting. So this is my bid right here. And then if you look over on this way, you'll see an ACoS column. Now you'll notice in this report, there's actually 2 ACoS columns. So what are these and why are these so different? Here you'll see in the far right ACoS column, you'll see an ACoS where it says views and clicks. So you'll see this is the data that we've been seeing inside of Ad Console. 12%, 11%, 8%, 11%. Again, these are fantastic numbers. So if we were only optimizing based on Ad Console, most likely we would have been increasing our bids. And you can see right here, someone put a $28 bid on this, because why in the world would you not want to get 600 in sales for only a little bit of spend, right? This looks fantastic. However, if you know how to read this data, you'll see that there's another ACoS column here, which this ACoS is the click attributed sales. So if I look at the orders here and the units, that's where I start to see a real difference. So these orders here on this view attribution are all of the orders from shoppers who saw the ad, which again is only 50% of our ad being shown for at least 1 second, and then went on to purchase, but they didn't actually interact with our ad. So did that ad drive a purchase, or was it because they were browsing around and maybe they found our product elsewhere and came back to purchase? We don't know. And so that's why when optimizing these ads, a lot of times, the ad performance is significantly overinflated in vCPM, and just don't use them whatsoever. I'm telling you right now, you can use vCPM because there is an advantage to doing it. We've seen that it really helps gain impressions, the ads where they serve up. I mean, it can be really beneficial to run this ad type. But again, if you're not optimizing it using the correct metrics, you will be wasting money. But if you know how to optimize it, which is what I'm going to show you right now, you can absolutely take advantage of this ad type and know that you're not going to be wasting any money due to overinflated, but the way that Amazon will calculate the orders in the ad console. And so these 2 orders right here are the orders that came from somebody directly clicking and interacting with our vCPM campaigns. And so if we optimize based on this data, we're going to be making much better decisions. And so you can see here what I would want to do is in this ACoS column, I want to look at the ACoS here, and then I want to make sure I'm making bid optimizations in this column, and then I'll show you how to upload these into your account so you can make these changes go live in Ad Console. So my recommendation when doing bid optimizations, I want to look at a couple things. So I'm going to sort this ACoS column highest to lowest here, and I want to do my bid optimizations based on this column's ACoS, not this one. So for this ACoS, that's 307%. That is way too high. I would want to make a new bid. And I'll walk you through a little bit of our bid optimizations and how we go about this. Now, we do have an algorithm that we built in-house for this, but I can give you sort of a sneak peek. So our recommendation, whenever you have an ACoS that is very high, when you have enough clicks to make a determination, so here we're seeing 13 clicks. I happen to know the conversion rate of this product and that it has a very high conversion rate. So I can be okay with optimizing pretty aggressively based on these 13 clicks. And then I have only a couple orders on here. We use what we call our break-even bid formula. So the break-even bid formula is going to be, you take your sales, which you can see here. I'm going to multiply that times my target ACoS, which in this account is 30%. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to divide it by the number of clicks I have, which brings my new bid, and I don't want to drag that down, to 57 cents. From $28 to 57 cents. That is a pretty aggressive adjustment. And I want to make sure to not copy over the formula. You have to delete this column. So the way I like to do it is just because this is a spreadsheet, it can do my math for me. So I'm going to put that in this column, and then I would copy it over to this bid column. And other pro tips I like to do is I do like to highlight the bids that I have changed. This is for my own reference. It doesn't really matter to Amazon, but I do like to adjust these. And I typically use a structure to say, like, if we lower it significantly, we do red. If we lower it a little bit, we'll do a little bit lighter. If we increase it, we will do green. If we increase it significantly, we do a dark green. And that is quite helpful if you're going back and you're referencing things. Other things you can do that will not create issues. Now, you can create additional columns in here. You cannot have a header on the column, but if I wanted to, say, record what my prior bid was for my own reference, I could put an additional column here, and then I'm just going to do that. But again, not having a header is super important, and I can't do it in this one because I have this other. Also, pro tip, you can hold down Shift-Control-V instead of Google Sheets and have that. All right, I'm going to delete that. Now, I wouldn't use the break-even bid formula on this one because although the ACoS is crazy high, I only have one click on this. In this case, my recommendation is going to be looking at the cost per click, which the cost per click is crazy right here. Okay, I don't want to go off the cost per click. Typically, we would go, say, 20% below the cost per click. That's insane. So you know what? Let's just use the break-even bid formula here because we've spent a lot and I only got one order from it. Again, if I'm looking in Ad Console, it's telling me 11% ACoS, where in reality, I have 119. And to be honest, the sponsor display doesn't really have an impact on organic ranking. So although I may be cutting off orders by significantly lower bid, I'm only cutting off one order and I do want to be sensitive. All right, so let's do that again. So we're going to take our sales price. We're going to multiply that times 30, and then I'm going to divide that by one click, which gives us a bid of $4. All right, let's put that one in there. And again, I'm going to highlight these and say we lowered them pretty significantly. All right, this ACoS right here, 94%, again, pretty high. We have 5 clicks on this one, which is a good amount, and our CPC is $4.80. This is a bid of $10. So in this case, I'm going to go 20% below the CPC, which is going to be multiplying the CPC times 0.8, which is going to give me $3.90. I'm going to bring that one down and put that one over, and then that one we lowered to the CPC, so I'll do that. Now, our 47% ACoS here, which is higher, but I do want to be careful. So let me take a look at, only have 2 sales. This one ordered a couple units. It looks like we're also getting multiple unit orders, which is pretty common for this product. We're also seeing a CPC of $2. I am kind of okay with this, to be honest, because we have really good margins on this product. And I probably want to bring this down a little bit more gradual. The bids are pretty crazy here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this to the average CPC right here. So I'm going to lower these bids because that will bring our cost down a little bit. However, it's not going to be so crazy. Now here I can see I have this 32% ACoS here, which is honestly in line with goals. And then I have a 30% ACoS here. Now here, I definitely want to check the account because right now I'm seeing, all right, CPC is 38 cents, but here I have a $17 bid, which is quite crazy. I probably want to cap that. So I happen to know that this is more of a supplement account. So I do want to be careful, but I'm going to drop this looking at the CPC right here. It's like $3. So I'm going to put a healthy $5 bid here, which will still allow me to get impressions. I shouldn't be hurting anything seeing as my CPC is this, but I don't necessarily want to leave a $17 bid on that. Okay, so that would be lowering bids on ACoS, but there's something else that you want to check because notice here you're also seeing other ones that have really good reported sales. Like this one says 22 sales, but in terms of click attribution sales, we've got nothing. So we want to make sure that we're optimizing these because, oh my gosh, we have an $11 bid. So this optimization, what you want to do is you want to filter out the orders. I'm going to do orders equals 0. And then I'm either going to sort by spend or I'm going to sort by click. So if I see Z to A, also keeping their color coding can be really nice because then you know which ones that you've adjusted. So here, goodness, inside the ad account, I'm seeing a 13% ACoS, but in this one, I'm looking at a $70 and 0 sales. Yeah, we definitely need to optimize that. Now, there's a couple ways in which you can optimize this. And honestly, in our bid algorithm, we kind of have layers. So the way in which we would do this is we would look at how many clicks we have and then make a bigger or more drastic adjustment based on how many clicks and how certain we can be that something is not working for the product. An example of this would be this 24 clicks right here. Now, I happen to know that the conversion rate for this product is, I believe, about 25%. So we have really strong conversion rates, which means that I can be very confident if 24 clicks is not converting, that this is just really not a good term to continuously spend on. So in this case, what I would want to do is we call it like our soft pause of a keyword. So there's a couple ways that you can do this. If you are confident that something doesn't work for you, oftentimes it just gets paused. Or what you can do is you can do what's called we call a soft pause, which is essentially you're putting a nominal value on it that essentially will most likely cut off all impressions, but you still retain the ability to potentially get a click on this item. This gives you two things. One, just the possibility of getting a really low cost click, which can be helpful. But the second thing that it does is if you use a very specific value, like in our case, it's 17 cents, then if ever I'm going through ad console and I see, oh, I'm not getting impressions because the bid is low, but I see the nominal value of 17 cents, I know that this is the optimization that was being done. Now, I know we're getting into bid optimization. Hopefully you guys are finding this valuable, but if I go in here, I want to make sure that this is a very drastic bid, so I'm going to adjust that. Now, in terms of this adjustment right here, again, the ways in which we do that is we will go below the cost per click. Now, in this case, I'm getting 15 clicks. So I maybe don't want to cut this off, but I do want to be very careful. So I'm going to be aggressive and I'm going to lower this to 50% below the cost per click, which I just multiply that by 0.5, not 5. Which is going to give me a value of $2.35. I'm going to adjust that one right there. And then I also have this one, which only had 6 clicks. But again, I have a $13 bid. Somebody put crazy bids in here. honestly, this is a little bit insane. A $48 bid. Good Lord. You can see why they came to us for help. In this case, what I would probably want to do is I almost need like a bid reset in this account. And you might very well find this in your account. Now, we've already taken care of this, so I'm not actually going to be worried about going through all of this and making these changes. But if we hadn't have already made changes to the account, I would be going through here. I would be looking at bids, sorting highest to lowest. And I would be adjusting these and finding what I think my cutoff bid would be, which in this account is a supplement account. So I would probably be dropping all of it. Again, they're not driving orders for me. So I don't need to be worried about cutting off orders. And again, it's a sponsored display campaign, so I'm not as worried about impressions on these. And so I would be dropping all of these bids to $5, honestly, just to sort of do a recount on the account. Again, the bids on this one are going to be a little bit higher because this is a supplement account. So $5 bids is fine and we have a conversion rate to sustain it. If your average cost per click in your account was, say 50 cents, if it was $1, I would be dropping it to like the average CPC in the account. All right. So I've kind of went over that. If you want to use bulk operations to also look at other adjustments, what you can do is you can uncheck 0, select all, uncheck 0, and then you can also sort by ACOS lowest to highest just to see if there's anything to raise. But in this account, we're lowering everything. It's not really working for us. All right. The other thing that I want to do, select all, and this is the other important reason why you want to make sure that you're filtering for item or like you're indicating the new which bids that you've changed, is I also need to do one more thing before I upload these to make these changes live in Ad Console. I need to put update in the operations column. So if I go here, I'm going to sort by color. And I've made my life a little bit harder because I have a ton of colors. All right, sort by color. All right, there we go. So now all of my colored items are at the top. So you can see here. So I need to go from this row up. So I'm just going to put update in this column. Then I'm going to copy this. I'm going to put update there. All right, awesome. So we've made our bid changes. We've made the changes to the bulk file. Now we have to do one last thing to make sure these changes are pushed live into our ad console. To do that, you're going to want to download. So all you have to do is file. You got to download as an Excel file. Then you're going to go back into your ad console. You're going to go to sponsored ads, bulk operations. You're going to go here. And then instead of creating your file, you can click upload your file to update your campaign. So all I have to do is click choose file. I will open it up, whatever that file that I've just downloaded with all of my changes. Then you'll see a submit button, and then you'll notice that your changes. So these are the other changes that we already made. So you can see like we already made 77 updates and successfully processed them. So when you upload your file, you should see it processing, and then you should see successfully processed changes. If you have any errors, there will be an error where you can download it. But as long as you follow the process that I showed you, which is just making an adjustment to this bid file, making sure that you don't have any other data in any of these. If you do want to keep extra data, make sure you have the column header blank. Do not delete any of these column headers. Just keep, add an additional one and make sure the header is blank. And then make sure you put update in the operations column. But as long as you follow those steps and you upload, you should be able to make changes to your sponsored display ads using a bulk file.